I'm Lucille Salerno. That's my maiden name, but I've been married in my life. And I grew up in New York, New York, New York. But I came here in 1974 with my husband, who took a job on the faculty of the university. He was a medical sociologist, and he died about 10 years later, and I married again, but I had a stroke a year and a half ago, and my husband died 2 days after my stroke. So it was a kind of strange experience. My family, I honestly loved my family greatly. My dad worked in construction, and my mom was a homemaker. She never worked during my father's life. She worked when he died, but because she took care of our home and my brother and I and my dad, and that was the generation where, probably the last one, where that was what women wanted to do and were pleased to do it. Immediately, like my generation, that didn't work. We had to be out there, we had to be doing something. And that was true for me, really. I taught at the university. I directed my last position, which I continued to work at until I was 83, when I had my stroke. But I directed a program at the university. You may have heard of it if you're in the university environs. It's the Osher Lifelong Learning Program, and it is created for an older population to keep cognitions stimulating them and involved in life, because it's too easy when sometimes you're the last or among the last persons in your life still living long and you kind of go into reverie about what life was all about. But you need to be pulled out of that and stimulated and to think about other things. And that's what that program is, still going very well. I did it for 11 years, and then when you have a stroke, it sort of takes the rest of your life. You just are taken out of the life you knew, and you have to adapt to something quite new and quite different. And I'm still adapting, I can tell you that with certainty. When I had the stroke, I didn't even know it was a stroke. I had come home from the dentist that morning. It was the 23rd of April, 2015, and I was making myself a cup of tea. I had a big, tall cup like that, and I was trying to carry it to the dining room table, and I suddenly felt strange, like I was losing my balance. So I put the tea down, and I tried to walk in the kitchen, but I was getting lower and lower and lower, and I'm trying to grab onto things to keep myself up. I couldn't. So finally I went down, and I could not get up. I know now why, because my stroke was in the cerebellum, and it is the balance center of your brain. So without balance, there was no way I could stand. Still working at 83. I never had a chance to think of retirement, or it didn't occur to me I was going to die. I just kept doing what I was doing, and I was working many hours a day. I would be involved in the classes during the day, and then I would go home, have dinner with my husband, and go back to the office, and I would work in the night. I would write at night. So it's like I was in this perpetual motion day after day. I never reflected on the end of life. So suddenly, boom, I'm knocked off my pins with a stroke. And literally, that was true. And you become totally passive. Somebody else has to do everything in your life. And so I went from intensive care to rehabilitation at Rusk, and then to skilled nursing, and finally to a place like this, which is somewhere between real life and a nursing home, a lovely nursing home, and perhaps I could call it, but a nursing home. And I got acquainted with the people here. Very different population, as I mentioned to you, from the population I knew at the Osher program. And then you close the door after dinner and you come in your apartment and it's nighttime. And then you begin to relive life. And then the realization is, I'm going backwards. You know why I'm going backwards? Because there's no distance in front of me, there's a big question mark. All I know is that it's brief. And so that, it was really from what was generated in my own consciousness that I saw was not unique. There's a generalized, in conversations, this is what we talk about. And there's a realization, the other thing is, since this is an advanced age population, there's a whole lot of funerals. And you get used to the rhythm of, yes, you see the decline, you see the color in the face change, it gets white or it gets yellow or what. And you know that that person isn't going to be around too much. And before you know it, you're going to a funeral. Well, that's the general experience. And so you begin to think more and more and more. And then you pick up on the sadness of having to say goodbye to a lot that you still are embracing. There are multiple lives, and each of them, have a message for you. The feedback from life, the feedback from people you're close to. And we need people. I mean, we're people who need people, like this song says. And but we also need the quiet times so that we reflect on what it is that's coming into our awareness. I think all in all, I did the kinds of things that I wanted to do in my life. I remember when I was something like 17 or 18, I went to a football game at Princeton University on the East Coast. And I loved the town, and I thought, that's what I want to do in my life. I want to live in a university town. And thank God, that really happened. I've lived in this town for 41 years, and I have loved every minute of it. So that's I call that kind of thing fulfillment. And really, those are the moments in life where the message comes across of where you are in your interaction. And if you have that sense of gratification, it is fulfillment. So that part of it, I have always loved education. That probably started when my father would sit down with me and do my homework every night. And I loved him, and I loved his kindness, and I loved how pleased he was when I was learning things. So it's like I wanted to be part of education always. That happened as well. So all in all, I'd rather be out there working. That's the thing I haven't gotten used to yet. I don't like being in the wheelchair and being unable to really get around, because really it is so complicated to get around that I hesitate to ask anybody because it's too much to ask. So I'm really trying to be as deep and as fully involved where I am, and I talk to myself about, well, yes, I saw that, so that's enough. I don't have to see it again. Things like that. So that I make this world that I'm in now, this part of life, as rich as I can. So I haven't given up a sense of regret that I'm not out there doing things, but I'm doing my best to try to relinquish what I can no longer do. I don't want yearnings. I want to feel like I'm using today, really.